Too many buttons. So yeah, I am the offering manager, which is really the same thing as a product manager at IBM for the Watson Assistant service. And we have a team of product managers, and specifically I lead the dialogue authoring side of things. So everything from creating your intents entities in dialogue, versioning, trying it out, testing it. All of that is under my control, and strategy is what I try and lead. So from feedback from people like you guys, from watching new users use the tool, is really how we're trying to drive things. So Watson Assistant is a service that helps you build a conversational interface into really any application, device, or channel. So it's a pretty open platform, and it can solve a lot of different problems, but we do focus on a few main areas. So typically at IBM, we're here to help the enterprise, and our vision is that every company has a branded, trusted, and personalized one-stop shop for all inbound and outbound communication for their enterprise. So anytime a customer needs to talk to the company, they'll talk to preferably a Watson-powered assistant. But our goal is really that every company has an assistant, whether it's powered by IBM or not. It's going to be up to the company, obviously. But our goal would be that is how a customer wants to interact with the company. They don't want to call in. They don't want to go to the website. Right? They want to talk to their digital representative. And we typically narrow in on these 4 different use cases. Like I said, it's a very open platform, but you have to be solving somewhat of a specific problem. So the 4 main use cases that we try and tackle at IBM are letting your customers self-serve faster. I want to pay my bill. I want to sign up for a product. This isn't working for me. How do I do this or that? The second one is really the same thing from the employee side. So as an employee, I'm really just a customer of my company's HR policies, my expense reports, my travel. I need to get those things done as fast as I can so I can get back to work. The third real use case is assisting your agents while they work. So there's going to be some problems that maybe Watson is not suited to solve, maybe things around bereavement, or if there's a death in the family, you need to help a customer, right? That requires a human touch to make sure you give it that, I'm sorry for your loss, and give it that emotional connection. But Watson can still help the agents do their job better. They can help them make sure they follow the right processes, remember to say the right things, and sell the right products at the right time. And the fourth use case, which typically has a little bit less to do with Watson Assistant, and it's more of the deeper AI that we're powering, is helping your experts find answers. Whether this is farmers understanding where the best field to grow crops is, or financial advisors understanding the best investments they could be recommending. It's really finding the deeper insights out of all of the unstructured data that companies have access to. So those are our 4 use cases. I'm looking forward to the panel and going over the industry as a whole.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mitch.
All right, hi everyone. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Alexa for the consumer. So sort of the way we frame this panel is to talk about how each of these major platforms are affecting users. And in my case, it's particularly the consumer, right? So Alexa works directly for the end user, right? So I'm sure I don't need to give you guys a history lesson. And when we launched, I was at Amazon during the original launch for the Alexa as a virtual assistant, right? Limited set of capabilities. It was specifically called or marketed as a smart speaker with these limited set of capabilities. Music is the top use case, probably still, Q&A, timers, and alarms. But now where we're headed in the future, and if you look at all the interviews for the roadmap, which I can't share, but you'll see that Alexa is really transitioning everywhere. So Alexa started in the home, whereas Alexa headed, right? Alexa was transactional. You asked her a question, she answered it. You asked her to play a music, a genre, a specific song, she would play that for you. Now people use Alexa for games. They use her in the car with accessories. We're getting integrated into other direct platforms with the car. So we have thousands of people working on Alexa as a platform. I'm sure you guys have heard Amazon's making a significant investment in AI and voice in particular. And so these are some of the improvements that we've seen just in 2018 alone. So 20% improvement. To give some context, Amit mentioned that I've been working in speech for a long time. So I started back in those touch tone replacements. I worked on Charles Schwab, stock quotes, things like that, back in the old days, the early 2000s at Nuance. And we would work maybe 2 or 3 weeks of our time to get a 2% bump in recognition accuracy on a stock quote application for Charles Schwab. Now, over the period of 2018, just due to the advances in the platform, machine learning, we actually see a 20% bump in Alexa's capabilities to answer questions of all kinds, not particularly one domain, right? So that's how quickly things have been advancing. Alexa Skills, Noel actually is a prize-winning skill dev, is over 80,000 worldwide, so that's including the other countries outside the US. And when I talk about being Alexa everywhere, moving out of the home into the car and mobile, we announced Echo Auto. There were over 1 million people who just pre-ordered to have Alexa brought out of their home and integrated into their car as a device. Okay, so anyway, connect with me on LinkedIn. Noel and I do this great thing where you actually find people nearby on LinkedIn. Because usually I post articles about sort of the state of conversational AI and designing for the new capabilities of the platform. My background is in engineering, but what I care about is the actual interface that impacts the customer, and how are we using those advances in ML and AI to impact the customer experience. All right, and that's it.
Thank you.
Thanks for the introduction, and of course, thanks to VentureBeat for even doing this cool thing. I'm very honored to be here. I do have so much I would love to share with you. So as Lisa mentioned, the first thing I always encourage you to do is just connect with us. At the end of today's session, we'll just open up LinkedIn. It's got a really great feature called Find Nearby. We'll show you how to use it. But look around, we are family. This room is not that big. This audience will only get bigger. And so it's a really great opportunity to connect with us. Let us connect you with the people that we know. Anyway, really good time. So I hope that you will take us up on that opportunity to really work more closely with you. This is my people. I always like to I only get a couple minutes to say anything to you, but I think at least a few of them should be dedicated to the reason I do what I do. So that's my husband. You can see I have 4 kiddos. We live on a farm in Washington. My dad, 72, was one of the reasons I got involved in voice because he had a traumatic brain injury, affected his ability to use really any technology traditionally through a screen or a device. So I got passionate about how could he use his voice to do more. And it was great to have Alexa. I was one of the first solutions architects on the Alexa platform, built tons of skills. You can go on LinkedIn and find out all the goodness about that. But it really opened my eyes to a new kind of customer base, right? Like elder care, as you may or may not know, is a huge opportunity for us to be thinking about. But then I also have my son, my very firstborn out of 4, Max. He has Down syndrome, and he kind of accelerated my interest in really changing the world for people who do not sit as the 1% of the 1%, the people usually in this room, right? Who easily get on our phones, easily get on a computer, but who actually want to participate in the world exactly the same way, who just want to talk to music, build a playlist, shop at a store. All of those things are things my 14-year-old does quite well now that he can do it with his voice. So as people, individuals, developers, designers, it really takes very little for us to change what we do at the beginning to show up for these audiences at the end. And so I just want to share with you one, of course, even if I only have a minute, I'll make sure you see a hard to read slide, because I feel like it's not a thing. If you don't show a slide, you can't hardly read. But this is my platform. I believe that voice should be everywhere, just like you said. And of course, Amazon's like Alexa everywhere, and I used to bleed Amazon, so I totally get that. But I do think voice should be everywhere. What I commonly stand behind is that when we think about things, we should be thinking in natural interfaces. It's funny now I work for Microsoft, because Microsoft was the company that taught the world Windows, mice, buttons, home computing. And now we're like, well, not so much that anymore, right? Use natural interfaces, whether that's text, whether that's voice. Build one bot, one smart interface to rule them all, right? You build one implementation, one skill, we'll call it. It has access to a ton of AI models. 30 plus models today are available at Microsoft. Tons are available at Amazon, right? Build your code base in one platform and then distribute it to all the channels. You can see here a list. You can build a bot using bot service in Azure, But then you can deploy it to Google, Alexa, Cortana, Teams, Skype. There's 12 channels. Why would I build 12 bots if I could build one? And here's the magic. I want to start my conversation in my office, finish it or continue it in my car, continue it or finish it at home. And I don't want to restart every time I go. I don't know if you've had this experience where you talk to Alexa and Alexa's like, I don't know who you are, start over, right? Like, oh, what was your name again? You talk to me 18 times a day, but it's brand new. This is my sign to get off this stage. So, but this is it's just a great illustration of we want to do more. Don't just think in the box of Alexa, though we are very comfortably there today. Think about what you could do in every application that we think about and that we design. So nice to meet you. I hope we'll be connected and be friends. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, that's a great introduction, and I really love the story that you just told, Noelle, about your father and your personal connection to voice.
Yes.
And I thought we'll kick it off by asking each and every one of you, you've decided to kind of devote yourself to voice interfaces. So what kind of brought you personally to this field? And Noelle, if you have anything to add on top of that?
Well, you heard, but very, very briefly, I think our funnel of users has not on purpose, but maybe haphazardly become people just like us. And that diversity and inclusion is not just this like, hey, let's get more women in the workforce, right? It really is like, what about the introverts? What about people with disabilities? What about people that are just different? How do we make this, your word, she has a book, ubiquitous. How do you make this ubiquitous? How do you make it not matter? Everyone should be able to play. And that's what got me involved, is that I have, of course, personal reasons, but now I'm really passionate about that for everyone who shares these experiences.
Yeah, I think technology for everyone. So I started in graduate school really just because signal processing, and I love speech recognition. I loved a challenging problem, the crossover with linguistics and electrical engineering. But the majority of the work in the early days were really just replacing bad touch tone systems with maybe okay speech recognition systems. And it wasn't until virtual assistants on mobile with Siri, and then later Alexa, Cortana, Google Assistant, that people are actually choosing to engage with speech recognition. If you think about all these systems I worked on in the early 2000s, you called for customer care, and instead of talking to a person, you were forced to speak to automation, right? Mm-hmm. So you're automatically predisposed to be unhappy, right? I don't want to talk to a machine, I want to talk to a person. Siri, Alexa, Google Assistant, people are willingly speaking to these virtual assistants, and that's when I talk about the transition from transactional, where it's just to get a task done, to I actually want to engage. And when you talk about people with disabilities, recently I heard of someone who basically had memory loss, Alzheimer's, and he said, Alexa has given me back my memory because I can ask her what time it is, what day it is, certain information, and I'll get the same answer every time. And it's given him back the sense of independence. He doesn't have to ask a caregiver certain information. He can
gets irritated the fourth time.
Right, but Alexa doesn't, right? And she'll dim the lights or turn on the TV and a number of home automation tasks. So it's really given a lot of people some independence and freedom back. And it's also for the folks who missed the mobile phone revolution, which are a lot of seniors. They can't do the tiny touch screen. My dad in his 80s had real trouble texting, but they can participate in sort of the IoT and the internet revolution through voice, which is amazing.
So I took a somewhat different route. I was actually working at a bank, and the CEO of a startup who was building chatbots maybe 10 years ago came in, and she wanted to open an account. She had just moved to the US, and I said, okay, what do you do? I'm helping her, I'm getting to know her. It's like, well, I build chatbots, and our number one customer is a bank, and the virtual assistant actually sells checking accounts. And I'm like, shoot, I sell checking accounts. This is probably not gonna be something I can do forever, right? So she ended up hiring me, and we ended up being acquired by IBM. But that was really what got me into it. I can see how much more scalable really this thing can be at my own job than me. And I know as a consumer, I didn't want to call in. I didn't want to talk to a person. I didn't want to, whatever was the most seamless way I could do it. I don't quite picture myself as a millennial, but I'm pretty sure millennials are just people who are 5 years younger than whatever you are. No one's a millennial. It's just the younger people are millennials. But I was of that generation that was like, if I can't self-serve this, I'm probably just not going to do it, right? If I have to sit on hold or waste someone's time, is it that valuable? Or like maybe someone else can just do this for me. So I had always been interested in things like this that can help you get a job done without actually having to think about it, right? That I think is the big benefit, is you don't have to go to a website anymore, figure out which link you click on. Each drop down has 10 more choices. You just say, here's my problem, and it helps you. The same thing in the banking situation is my grandfather used to go out to lunch with his personal banker. And I thought that was crazy. I was like, I don't know the last time I opened the door to go talk to someone actually in the bank that I wasn't going for work. It was like, I go to the ATM or I do it online, and that's it. So establishing that relationship, I think, goes a long way to making it easier for everyone to get their job done.
That's great. I think that's this emotional and human connection that voice can bring to seniors, to people that haven't been in the technology space is just amazing. And Noel, I'm going to call back to what you said once more. And you talked about how you're seeing these virtual assistants that are following you around wherever you're at. And what I'm thinking is these different contexts of bringing voice interfaces and it doesn't have to be specifically virtual assistant, but every voice interface, they're not all created equal, right? It's different when you're at home, when you're on the job, when you're driving, when you're on the beach, or when you're with your kids. So maybe that's for you, Lisa, from the experience that you have. How do you see the different contexts of bringing voice into the consumer's hands? How is that different across contexts?
Yeah, so when we talk about Alexa everywhere, and as Noel said, she's a former Amazon friend, and yeah, it's true that sometimes you want things to be seamless, right? You want to have the assistant that knows you, which is why a lot of folks were very skeptical of actually Alexa ever being a success, because they said, Siri already knows me, right? Has my phone, knows where I am. If I can just pull Siri out of my pocket and press, or say, hey Siri, why on earth would I want this Pringles can on my counter? And the amazing thing is that in the home, people use devices differently. And in the car, they use them differently. And so I think you talked a little bit, or I think you did, about design once, deploy everywhere. I think that people experience Alexa in the home, and it is optimized for the home use case because that's where she was born. And they want exactly that, for example, in the car, and I worked on car systems for a while. But what you don't realize is that you don't actually want that. You want a version of that knows you, has the same information about you, that has your shopping list, has your contacts, has your favorite music, but you're not going to talk to your speech assistant in the car the same way you do at home, even though they're both hands-free environments, okay? Because you're strapped down and you're going somewhere. And so the odds are you're interested in a destination, you want to get somewhere, so navigation. Nobody uses navigation on Alexa in the home because they're home, okay? And they're not trip planning for the next day. So the use cases are different, and so Alexa sort of needs to adapt to the car environment in the same way. In business, Alexa for Business is a separate use case, right? It's a communal device that is not private to your family. It is maybe in a conference room or maybe in an office space, less private, less secure. What about in a hotel? Also very different. So I think the customizing, you can have the same information and the same knowledge and the same personal assistant, but to apply it to all the different contexts is actually a really challenging job that Amazon is putting a lot of investment into.
I think voice may or may not be the best avenue, right? If you're looking for maybe medical advice and your stomach hurts, you probably don't want to be saying the effects of that in the middle of a shopping mall, right? You might not want to be asking, hey, what's my account balance? You're overdrawn by $5. You don't want to say that while you're paying at the grocery store, right? So that's where, okay, I need to do this over messaging really quick because it might not be good news. Same thing, in the home. If we see a lot of use cases for like teens to ask questions about more adulthood topics in an unbiased, unjudgmental way. It's actually a really powerful use case, but the teen's probably not going to do that in the middle of the kitchen to their Alexa while their mom is, watching TV. So each time you kind of need to think about, do I want to say this out loud? Do I want to have this in private or in public? Whereas in a conference room, having it always listening, ready to help is a perfect, it's an amazing use case.
Yeah.
So each time it's a little bit different, needs of the user.
That's right. And you also said design once, deploy everywhere. And I think further, or not only from the perspective of is something usable in different contexts, but the design of the conversation itself might be different for different use cases and different devices. Mitch, do you have a perspective on this?
We have a big use case around finding information at a company. Tell me all of the information about this credit card, for example, is a simple use case. That probably wouldn't go very well over voice, right? You have this whole terms and conditions sheets, all of these numbers and stats. You can't digest that very well if you're just listening, especially if you're cooking dinner in the middle of it. You want a visual of that document. Maybe if you're solving kind of a harder problem you don't know much about, you want buttons and guardrails to walk you through that process. So just doing it over voice where the user can literally say anything, they have a lot more chances to go out of, off the rails. Yeah. At the same time, it's hands-free, so there's a trade-off each channel you go through.
I think as a developer, right, I come from a different perspective because I build these skills, and I think the burden is really, like, the platforms are incredible, but the burden is on the dev, right? Like, we as developers need to maintain context. We need to create an experience that will check what device are you on, where are you in the room. We have the APIs from Alexa, from Microsoft, give you the ability to understand the acoustic models of where you are. It knows the sound of a faucet. So we can leverage this. If we're a dev and we know that, this is why I do what I do, is I want us as developers to know that these things exist, because it's us who make those experiences. The tech is there. The tech is often there. It's often, the burden is, again, on the developer to really leverage that to maintain context you can do this today, from the office to the car to the house, and the user never has to re-log in or re-authenticate. You know them, you save it so that it survives Google to Alexa to Cortana, right? And that's the goal. That is the golden vision, right, of voices. Customers don't care what device they're talking to, nor should they have to. Right. But the devs have to, we have to build those experiences and design them that way.
And the device itself knows whether it has a screen, for example, and can show rich visual content. Or if it's an audio only device and you're not looking at a screen, you just have a light ring, or depending on the situation. And we have tiny screens, we have big screens, we have consuming entertainment. You're gonna see, just play a movie with Tom Cruise is something you can do on Echo Cube. So they're all different, but like you said, you don't have to, I don't have to say different things or use different vocabulary. I think that's the conversational side. Now, does the assistant change? I think it's true, right? I speak differently in the car than I do in the office, than I do at home with my 10-year-old. In different contexts, you do speak differently, and you do sort of act differently and have different conversations, and that's okay. That doesn't mean I'm not Lisa when I'm in a professional context versus a personal one. It's
a matter of context. Even the capabilities of they were recently added to multiple virtual assistants. Being aware of the time, it's night time, I'm going to whisper the response. Right. So being aware of the context of where I am, even if the device is the same device in the same place, and also maybe in the future being aware of the context of, I'm talking to Lisa, but maybe Lisa's a little sad right now, right? Or maybe Mitch is super happy. So we kind of need to learn and make AI better in reacting to the environment and the context. And you also mentioned kind of listening to a faucet running. And this brings up a topic, which is a very hot topic today. These devices, to be aware of all these contexts and all these contextual cues, they need to be constantly listening, right? And what do you feel the sentiment is around privacy, and how do you think it's going to change? Because for me, I don't care if our Google Home is going to listen to me shouting about my kids not finishing dinner. That personally, I don't mind, but I know that a lot of people do. So how do you feel people are getting used to it? How is it going to change over time? Let's start with you, Noor.
Sure. So I'm a big proponent of responsible AI. And I think part of the concern was the velocity in which Alexa became popular. we didn't really have a chance to get in front of it. Like we were on the heels of Fire Phone, a disaster, right? We didn't even know if this thing would work. So we didn't get in front of it and really prepare people for what the reality was. Now the interesting thing about privacy is people are willing to give their data away if it gives them something. And Americans, 1% of the 1%, we actually will do it, especially if it gives us convenience, right? Like we sign it away every day and we don't mind because it gives us value. But we have to be, as vendors, as the people who are championing these products, we have to be extremely transparent about that, what that means. And I think we saw a little bit of backlash of that because we just didn't have a chance to do that. We went from like 0 to 100 million in 4 years on a device that had never been seen on the planet before. Like it was crazy velocity. So I think if I had it to do over, that would be the one thing I think would have given people more comfort, was if we really explained to them, here's what you're giving, but here's what you're getting. And I've done this research across all companies that I've worked for, and people will always, 93%, if you want a specific percentage, will give their data in return for convenience in this country. That is extremely scary, by the way, but that is the reality. So I don't think there's that fear that happens if we are much more transparent about what we're doing and how we're doing it.
I think when you said the value, that's the main part, right? If I have an Alexa and say I never use it, but I start getting ads on my phone, or I guess if I use Facebook or something, I'll see ads that like, wait a second, I was talking about that yesterday, but I haven't logged in here in weeks. So that's where I'm not personally not getting any value, but I'm seeing how they're taking advantage of my data. But yeah, if it really is a trade-off. As long as I'm saying, well, yeah, it's listening, but I get these 10 other things are great for me, I have no problem sharing data.
That's right.
Yeah.
So and the burden, of course, is on us to be good about that.
Valuable.
Yeah, and I think the always listening fear is the listening being recorded, not having maybe control over that. And I think, like you said, we did Amazon and the industry as a whole, I don't think got ahead of the wake word, always listening sort of paradigm. Whereas people feel like I pressed a button and then started talking is different from I said something aloud and it's listening for that keyword. And Amazon is crazy private. They're obsessed with customer privacy and customer control over their data. And so you have the ability to delete all the data. You can delete one piece of data at once. You can wipe all of it from the servers. You have total control over it. But as you said, most people don't care, right? So it's kind of like, I don't care that I have GPS on my phone and it's tracking where I am because it enables me to get really good directions on Waze, right? So that doesn't matter to me. I don't care that it has my fingerprint because then I don't have to type a long password. So it's a value trade-off. Yep.
Right.
At IBM, we kind of take it a different way too, where because we're representing the enterprise, that data is kind of their gold mine. So we say, like, you own your data. And there's other models, if we charge dollars, but other companies may say, well, you can use our services for free, but we're going to learn from that data. We're going to use it to enhance our services, to make 100 skills better. And there's kind of value on both sides of it. So we take it from, look, it's your data, IBM won't look at it, won't read it. At the same time, we do sometimes struggle with, like, well, we need more data to learn from, right? So we have to work with customers to get that.
Right, so we're running out of time. I just wanted to have a very quick lightning round, kind of very short answers. What would be the advice you would give businesses and leaders that want to leverage voice AI in their products, in their offering, and in their business? Like, what would your advice be to them? Start, Mitch?
We tell all of our customers to start small with a narrow use case you're going to get value in, because we've seen customers try and build an assistant that can take care of their whole business, and they just never go live and never see any value. It's a black hole. So if you can start small and get value, you learn, and you're like, now I have the investment and I'm ready to expand over time. Same with a new employee, right? You hire someone, you give them 1 or 2 jobs, and they learn more and more and more as they go. It's kind of the same model.
Yeah, and I think specifically with voice, so one of the reasons I brought up the little history lesson around the Echo is that the Echo did a few things really, really well. And it wasn't about replacing Siri or being the catch-all virtual assistant. It was nailing those specific use cases. And I think for a business, it's the same thing, right? Whatever your highest value is, do that piece really well first, and then you can expand from there and learn from it. Again, with voice, it is a little bit more challenging, I would say, than mobile in terms of development. You have NLU and speech recognition and all these other noise. But I think if you can skip 20 taps or bunch of mouse clicks and with one utterance get what you want, that is the incredible value of using voice.
Noelle?
And I'll just close really quick with my promise, right? So on LinkedIn, there's this cool feature called Find Nearby when you click the little human people down here. And I would say my biggest advice to you is like, get connected, right? We're human before we're artificial. So like, take advantage of us, take advantage of the people and the things that we know. I would love to share with you the crazy journey that we've been on. We didn't have a whole lot of time to share with you today, but I invite you. A bunch of you said yes already, so thanks for that. But I look forward to being connected. I think we all do. So thank you for coming.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Noelle, Lisa, Mitch. I think something that came up recurrently in all of our answers is the value proposition. That voice is unlocking a unique value proposition that wasn't there before. And I really thank you guys for coming in and sharing your expertise. Thank you so much.